And they say that justice is blind. She ain't blind, she just totally ignores you. Your boyish good looks, your lavish lifestyles, your constant need for attention by doing charitable work. In the end, she ignores all of that just to give you a swift retribution that you righteously deserve. And with that being said, let's get started, folks. Welcome to another episode of Knoweth That God. I'm your host, Ravitrue. In today's course, we are going to go over Nemesis, the Greek goddess of vengeance. This live little assassin is going to be one of your two starting assassins you could for you new players to start off with. Now, of the two assassins, she's labeled as average in difficulty, whereas in Thor, the other assassin you have access to, is labeled hard. Now, being that the kit is much more simpler on Thor, you would think it wouldn't be the case, but trust me, when I get to Thor, you'll find out why. Just because of how much of a higher skill floor he requires. Now, Nemesis, however, does not require as much of a skill floor. She still requires a decent amount, so you might want to at least practice being a warrior a little bit first before trying to play this lovely little femme fatale. Now, to start off with, we're going to go over her abilities. Well, first we got to fill out some stuff for cooldowns, just so that way I could demonstrate her abilities to you. So let's do that. Where is it? No. No. Apparently I'm blind too, like the Lady Justice stuff. Anyways, alright, let's get started, shall we? Now, first off, we're going to go over her passive. Being the goddess of vengeance, she's not only just a vengeance, that is her main course of I would say habits. No Shire here. Habits. It's her main habit, or hobby, I should say. It's her main hobby. And not a whole vocation, though. Her vocation includes also administering justice. So she's basically a judge, jury, and executioner when whipping your candy butt. Now, being that she is also the goddess of justice, this means she has scales, which weigh in your good and your bad. Should your bad outweigh your good, well then your divine retribution will come upon you so fast you won't even have time to even piss your pants. So let's start off with her passive Scales of Fate. Now, whenever you hit an enemy with a basic attack, you strip them of either physical, strip them of physical and magical power, and increase your own physical power. This will give you 5% power will cause the victim to lose 5% power, and you to gain 5% power per hit, stacking up to a maximum of 4 times, and the stacks last for a duration of 5 seconds. So as you can see here, right above your health bar, there's that little tooltip that indicates exactly your passive and how much you have stacked up. And notice as it falls off, and if you notice to your slightly lower left, how the stats change as you gain that passive. Keep this in mind. That's pretty much your passive. It does nothing with your kit other than just augment your overall damage output and reward you for landing those basics. Now, her first ability is Swift Vengeance. And this is basically a dash. A short range dash, 30 feet. And you will pass through all enemies that you hit. And that's all it does. It damages. Starts with a base 50 with a 30% power scaling. And on a 14-second cooldown. Now, for each point you put into it, it just only ups the damage, maxing out at 170 plus 30% of your physical power. The thing to note is when you use Swift Vengeance, you can do what is known as an auto attack cancel. You get 2 uses of this ability before it goes on cooldown. Now, however, you only get 2 seconds to use that second dash, otherwise it will go on cooldown automatically, so keep that in mind. See, You only get enough time starting off for one swing before you're going in with the dash, being to use your second dash. But this is what is known as auto attack canceling. When you use an ability that has a small window frame to allow you to use the ability again, and you smack somebody else, and you start using your basic. That's an auto attack cancel. Keep that thought in mind, folks. Now, that's all. That's all there is to it. To her ability. This is a great way for her to escape, to also initiate fights. Now, her second ability is the one you want to take most note of, and it's mostly what people pick her up for. This is known as Slice and Dice. She hits all enemies within I want to say, 160-degree cone in front of her. It's a very wide cone that has a max range of 35 feet. Now, the one thing you want to note is that if you notice how the little silhouette of the cast it shows for those who have quick cast, or I mean not quick cast, but insta cast and no, not insta cast, quick cast and normal cast. This will show you exactly where your ability will hit. Now, if you notice that it's divided into three little pizza wedges. The two bigger pizza wedges deals the normal damage that it's supposed to deal, which is 40 damage plus 30% of your physical power scaling. Now, the smaller pizza slice here in the middle, that cone right there deals double that damage. Physical power still scales the same as a 30%. So instead of 40, you'd be doing 80. Now, one thing to note also is that the victims inside that little narrow area right here of your slicing dice will also be slowed. This is on a 13-second cooldown, and just so you know, your slow does not only apply to the victims in the middle. It does not apply to anything that's hit by the side. As you can see here, no slow. Now, each point you put into slicing dice just ups the and it's slowed for 2 seconds, so keep that in mind. Doesn't, and the more you level up this ability, the more damage it does, and that's it. Nothing else scales as you level it. Now, if you hit it in the middle, boom, you can see the slow being applied. Now, Nemesis' third ability, which is why I say this makes her a little bit easier to use than Thor, even and doesn't exactly make her skills, and this is why her skill floor is at a slightly lower level than Thor's as an assassin, is because this ability is called Retribution. And what she does is she creates a temporary shield around herself that lasts for 2 seconds. Now, during that time, while this shield is active, any enemy that hits you will have a percentage of the enemy guys that hit you will have the percentage of the damage reflected right back to them. And also will heal you for amount of the damage a certain percentage of the damage you received as well. Do note that so this allows her to engage her targets a lot more safely than some other assassins who have a hard time engaging. Now, do keep in mind that even though that the shield only lasts 2 seconds or until they strip the shield, it will start off with 100 health. Heals you for 60% of the damage received while this shield is active, and reflects 30% of the damage dealt back to the target. Now, do note that, and this is all on a 16-second cooldown. Now, note that this ability will also be instantly removed if Nemesis is hit with hard crowd control, such as knock-ups, knockbacks, pushes, pulls, stuns, roots. Those will remove the shield from you, so make sure you keep that in mind. Now, sorry folks, phlegm issue. Maybe she can help me smite that little issue in a moment here when I get done with this. Now, her final ability is also the one other reason that she was picked up a lot more in the previous seasons than she is now, being that this is the 5th season, and that is her Divine Judgment. Now, what this ability used to do is it would actually strip the target of its health, of a certain percentage of its health, ignoring all protections. So when you had this thing maxed out, it would strip your target down to 50% of their health instantly, making her the most effective tank killer practically in the whole entire game, overwhelmingly. The reason why she didn't become as popular until the 4th season is because of how item builds were back then. Now, what this does now, however, is it will deal damage based on a certain percentage of that guy's health. And it will be affected by protection, so keep in mind you want to have some penetration when you use this ability to get the most effectiveness of it. It also deals 20% of the target's maximum HP. Oh, current HP, correction. So you I forgot about that department. This ability even used to strip the target based on its current HP, not the max health. So it was most effective to use this at the start of the fight rather than try to use it closer to the end of the fight, because you get the most damage out of it. Now, that still holds true to today. Now, it starts over with dealing 20% of the target's current HP as maximum damage, current HP as damage, and it will steal 30% of that target's current protections, and give Nemesis those protections. What it will also do is it will remove 15% of that target's movement speed and also give it to Nemesis as well. And this will last for these buffs and debuffs will last for 5 seconds, and this is on a 90-second cooldown. Now, for each point you put into this, the more HP damage this will do, maxing out at 30% of the current HP, and will also magnify the movement speed buff and debuff, maxing out at 25% movement speed buff and debuff. Now, that's all there is to her abilities. I mean, simple as her judgment. Once the law is laid down, that's all there is to it. Now, let's go to the jungle arena. Not jungle arena. Jungle practice arena, shall we? And I'll show you a case of her skills in an actual a simulated match. Now, mind you, remember always to keep in mind that I do these in practice modes, so that way you folks can get the best idea of how this stuff works without me having to worry about having to actually win a match. So that way I can focus more on giving you folks information rather than worry about trying to save my own hide or our teammates. That being said, let's go on in the show. Alright. All you gotta do is just warm it up a little for 15 seconds.
The truth will set you free.
Nemesis.
Leona.
This will be a breeze. This will be a breeze.
Nemesis.
Now let's hit her up. Light 'em up, up, light 'em up, up. On fire!
Even gods must heed the scales of fate.
Alright, now I know you folks are wondering, well, what do I do with her build then? She does not have very high power scaling for her abilities. So you would think maxing out the raw damage on that would be wouldn't be as great of an idea. Well, I'm here to tell you folks, in the earlier seasons I used to play her mainly as an auto attack god. That's no joke.
This will serve me well.
True stuff. I used to build her solely on auto attacks alone, using her abilities as a supplemental kit, which would still probably hold true. Or you can, if you really are want to rely that much on her ultimate, you could always...
You have slain an enemy.
You can always go just for a straight cooldown build, and then hope like heck you can hit line those abilities.
My strength has failed me. Quadra kill.
Now, how I'm build her in this season though, it's slightly different how I built her last season. I still would do the build slightly on the all attack side, but it wouldn't hurt to get a slight bit of amount of cooldown so that way you can get your abilities up a little more frequently, because those are what's going to help you survive.
My path bends. You are on a rampage.
You're
Shut down.
Down, yep. But as you can see from using that ultimate alone, that allowed me to survive a lot longer than I should have as an assassin. Hence why she's a little bit easier to play and learn as a role assassin, as opposed to someone like Thor, and his kit does not allow you to make as many mistakes like that and get away with it. He requires a little more precision. That's why he's listed as hard, folks, and this is why she's listed as average. However, I would have preferred that they put for your starting gods to have put Bastet as the secondary starting option because of her being labeled as easy. Mainly due to the fact that her kit allows her to easily do what an assassin does. Burst the foes down and get it out safely and get out. Which makes it her build is simple, straightforward build. Also, so that would basically mean that you would have to play her. You have to be really. You would have the effectiveness of Bastet would have been dependent a little bit more on the skill rather than on the gear. Although that still items are still important for Bastet. Now, that being said, let's get back to work. Okay, no, I wouldn't even bother going that way if I saw that many people going, so we'll just sneak around this way. So yeah, once you got enough attack speed going, you can actually get 2 auto attacks in before you have to hit the final dash. Usually, I would recommend building up your slice and dice and your retributions first, because those are your main primary damage and survival abilities.
on guard.
You have slain an enemy. Stop.
Oh, that was not good, dude. You should never have done that.
Double kill. Left the river.
And that's when I said before in my video about Mir, how you can screw someone over as an Amir. Mainly your teammates. But, that aside, folks, let's get started to doing what I do best. And always make sure you level up that ultimate, because that ultimate leveling up, granted, will not up the amount of protections you get from your ability, but at the very least, it will up your the amount of damage you deal with it, plus also up the movement speed. So therefore, it still helps with the survivability in the long run of things. So you notice how the shield still protects my health from on the jungle camps. Just note that it does not do anything as far as reflecting damage back to minions whatsoever. Alright, since I do weave a good chunk of my build, since I weave my stuff, I find it most useful if I use a build like this.
This will tip the scales of balance.
Oh, Jesus. Now remember, folks, as I always said, always make sure your build goes against what they are building. Counter build, always. It leads to success. Don't let anyone else tell you differently. See, if I want to, I could do this.
To challenge me to vengeful pride is to suffer
Killing
defeat.
spree. Double kill. Double kill. My strength has failed
Wait
me.
for me. Taste my blade.
Triple kill.
Alright, that allows, like I said, see, that's how the ultimate allows you to get more out of your Nemesis as far as survivability is concerned and get in and out. This is why it makes her slightly easier to learn than Authority, to be honest. And in some cases, it actually makes her a little more safer, too, than a Bastet.
Enemy has been slain.
I guess the difficulty is rather of how the kit works, rather than so far as exactly whether or not the god requires any skill or not. I think is maybe how they list their difficulties. I'm not 100% certain, folks. I'd rather not try to figure out if I'm 100% certain. But I will say this. One thing you gotta remember as a Nemesis, you are an assassin. You're hella squishy, even though you got more survivability than most assassins. Which brings me to a small tangent. No, funny fact, she used to be a warrior when she first was released in her primary, and I think it was back in the early days of the beta.
On guard.
Out. Oh, never mind, not out. But no man, I would have been out if I had a decent, actually human players on my team. But the point being is, she used to be a warrior, so that's why her kit is the way it is. And she didn't exactly when she got switched to an assassin, she didn't retain the protection numbers, but she, if I'm right, retained the HP values. So she has she does have a little more health than most assassins do at her to start off with. Which is good because, like I said, since you don't have a leap, it is harder for you to get in than those who have a leap. Especially when you go against gods who are designed to zone.
Killing spree.
Cannot be stopped.
See, and this is where your passive makes her a very deadly foe. It makes it a lot harder for auto attack gods, especially, to fight her in a boxing match. Due to the fact that you stripping, because you got a built-in Ichabod in her kit. And speaking of Ichabod, that does remind me, you can build Ichabod in her kit to make it even more debilitating in the boxing matches, if you choose to. I choose not to because I find her passive just good enough as it is. You, however, can be the judge of whether or not it's good enough for you. Now that being said, do I want to build? No, I don't need to build. It's too early. No matter, I'll probably build. You know what? We'll just do it anyways. Build warriors base at least, and then finish off my final basic attack piece. That should do the trick for me, folks. Now you could build a hastened katana on her if you wish, or if you want that extra slows, you can even go for a frostbound hammer. In my case, I'm probably not gonna go either. I don't think.
An ally has been slain.
Mainly because I went with Crusher instead, which I probably should not have went with. Ow! And I'm smoked! Yeah, I probably should have went with probably chin size if anything else, folks. I mean, my abilities are not off of cooldown enough to even... Now, if you want me to show you what her at max cooldown reductions give you, I could do that on a theoretical level for you. Let me give you... So I got 20% cooldown reductions right now, folks. To give you an idea of how much ridiculousness is her. Cooldowns, 9.6, 7.8, 8.4. Not 54 seconds. So you can go with a a cooldown build if you choose to. And then just use your basic attacks as supplements. Or it's all up to you.
Double kill.
Alright,
Minions have reached your portal.
Yeah, I probably could go with... Well, I could go with this, yeah.
Killing spree.
Or could you go with this? Yeah, let's go with this.
This will tip the scales in my favor.
Now, if I had to deal with a healer, I'd probably go with something like a toxic dagger, or maybe even a brawler's beat stick.
Double kill. Bring it on.
Yeah, you're not catching me that quickly.
Lie down.
Okay, now you want to do this. Oh, I did not see that. I should have paid attention to my map on that one, folks. But yeah, that one was painful. See, as I said, folks, she does have a decent survivability, but she can still be squashed like a bug. So you gotta be careful. Other than that, there's not much else to her kit. There's no awesome tricks that goes with her. Just good old-fashioned takedowns.
An enemy has been slain.
And knowing what you can handle.
Let the waters rise.
So remember, even though you have a dash, you're technically still having to take in some damage. So keep in mind to be careful where you come from. Like any assassin, always try to go for the lower health targets first if you can, and if not, try to use your. Unlike most assassins, you also got a good way to initiate team fights. See,
Killing spree.
you can use your. See, this is how you can use your ow, ooh, 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 ah, da, 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 do, do, do. Ow, 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 ow. Yeah, that's GG right there. But as I was saying, though, you should remember always. Actually, no, I just lost my train of thought trying to survive that.
Minions have reached your point.
Time to swing the scale back to my favor now.
An enemy has been slain.
Time for some real divine punishment. Oh, I did forget to mention that. Not only can you also attack basic auto attack cancel on that on your dash, you could also do your abilities on that too during that window of time frame. So use that as an opportunity to close the distance with your dash, hit him with a slice and dice, and you can use it to close the distance again with another dash.
Killing spree.
Boom! Now, if I wanted to, I probably could go for some cooldown, but I think I got enough cooldown on these abilities as it is. Maybe. Like I said, I tend to use these as a supplement anyways.
Slain an enemy. An enemy has been slain.
So just make sure you do like any smart assassin would. Go for low health targets you can. If you have to have a team fight and you get your ultimate on the cooldown, use it to weaken the beefiest target possible. That way the tank will be less effective in the team fight, thus allowing your team to actually win those fights a lot easier. Because their main form of front line is now been pretty much gimped. And therefore will be an easier, softer target to deal with. No, you're not going anywhere.
You have slain an enemy. An ally has been slain.
Justice is mine.
Ah, shut down. That's all there is to it for kits, folks. So enjoy the view. If not, if you don't want to finish watching this, to the end to see how it goes.